During a lavish party, a billionaire challenged a humble mother, saying he would only marry her if her son could play the piano. What he didn't expect was that the child, with hidden and remarkable talent, would play like a true professional. From that moment, his life changed forever. Before we start, your presence means a lot. If you wish, say hello and share where you're watching from. If you find this helpful, please like and subscribe to our channel. It helps us reach more people. The rain drummed against the cracked windows of apartment 3B as Sarah Chen wiped down the same coffee table for the third time that evening. Her 6-year-old daughter Madison sat cross-legged on their worn carpet, carefully coloring inside the lines of a princess coloring book with crayons that had seen better days. The apartment was small, barely 600 square feet, but Sarah had made it feel like home, with hand-me-down furniture and Madison's artwork taped to every available wall space. "Mommy, look!" Madison held up her drawing, beaming with pride. "I made the princess's dress purple because purple is strong, like you said." Sarah's heart swelled as she knelt beside her daughter, smoothing down Madison's dark hair that always seemed to have a mind of its own. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Purple is definitely your color." The sound of their upstairs neighbor's piano drifted through the thin walls, as it did every evening around 7 o'clock. Madison's eyes immediately lit up, and she tilted her head to listen, her small fingers unconsciously moving as if she were playing along on an invisible keyboard. "That's Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major," Madison said matter-of-factly, causing Sarah to pause mid-reach for her daughter's scattered crayons. Sarah stared at Madison in amazement. "How do you know that, baby?" Madison shrugged, as if recognizing complex classical pieces was the most natural thing in the world for a 6-year-old. "It sounds like moonlight dancing on water. The man upstairs plays it every Tuesday." Before Sarah could respond, a sharp knock echoed through their small apartment. Sarah glanced at the clock, 8:30 p.m. Who would be visiting at this hour? She peered through the peephole and saw a man in an expensive-looking coat, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the rain. "Can I help you?" Sarah called through the door, keeping the chain lock secure. "My name is Vincent Ashford," the man replied, his voice carrying a refined accent. "I live in the penthouse upstairs. I was wondering if I might speak with you about something rather urgent." Sarah had heard whispers about the mysterious man who owned the entire top floor of their modest building, but she'd never seen him before. Rumors circulated among the other tenants about his wealth, his reclusiveness, and the haunting piano music that sometimes echoed through the building late at night. "It's quite late, Mr. Ashford," Sarah said, her hand instinctively reaching for Madison, who had wandered closer to the door with curious eyes. "Please, Mrs. Chen, Sarah Chen." "Mrs. Chen, I realize the hour is inappropriate, but I couldn't help but notice." He paused, and Sarah could hear him shifting his weight in the hallway. "I heard someone humming along to my piano playing earlier today, someone with perfect pitch." Madison tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "That was me, Mommy. The pretty music made me happy." Sarah felt her cheeks flush. She'd been hoping their paper-thin walls worked both ways, but apparently their wealthy neighbor had been listening too. "I'm sorry if we disturbed you," Sarah began, but Vincent interrupted. "Disturbed? Oh no, Mrs. Chen, quite the opposite. In 40 years of playing piano, I've never encountered someone with such natural musical intuition. Your daughter has an extraordinary gift." Sarah looked down at Madison, who was now pressing her ear to the door with unabashed curiosity. Her daughter had always been different, too perceptive, too intelligent, with an uncanny ability to understand things that should have been beyond her years. But musical genius? That seemed impossible. "Mr. Ashford, I appreciate your interest, but it's late, and I have a proposition," Vincent said urgently. "One that could change both of your lives forever." The desperation in his voice made Sarah pause. Through the peephole, she could see him running his hands through his silver hair, his expensive coat dripping with rainwater. He looked nothing like the confident, wealthy man she'd imagined. Instead, he looked lost, almost broken. Madison whispered, "He sounds sad, Mommy, like when you cry at night when you think I'm sleeping." Sarah's breath caught. Her 6-year-old was far too observant for her own good. The past 2 years since David's death had been a constant struggle. 3 jobs, mounting medical bills, and the growing fear that she couldn't provide the life Madison deserved. Against her better judgment, Sarah slowly unlatched the chain lock. Vincent Ashford stepped into their humble apartment, and Sarah immediately felt self-conscious about their second-hand furniture and Madison's toys scattered across the floor. But Vincent didn't seem to notice the modest surroundings. His eyes were fixed entirely on Madison, who stared back at him with the fearless curiosity that only children possess. "Hello there," Vincent said, kneeling to Madison's eye level. "I'm Vincent. I heard you know about music." Madison nodded solemnly. "Music tells stories. Your music tells sad stories about someone you miss." The color drained from Vincent's face, and Sarah watched as his hands began to tremble slightly. For a moment, nobody spoke. The only sound was the continued rainfall against their windows and the distant hum of traffic from the street below. "How did you?" Vincent's voice was barely a whisper. "The notes sound like crying, but pretty crying," Madison explained, as if discussing the weather. "Like when you love someone so much that missing them makes beautiful sounds." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Her daughter's insights were often startling, but this felt different, more profound, more impossible. Vincent stood slowly, his eyes never leaving Madison. "Mrs. Chen, your daughter possesses something I've spent my entire life searching for, a pure, untainted connection to music that transcends technical skill." He paused, gathering himself. "I want to make you an offer." "What kind of offer?" Sarah asked cautiously, unconsciously stepping protectively in front of Madison. Vincent reached into his coat and withdrew a business card, though Sarah noticed his hands were still shaking. "There's a piece of music that means everything to me. It's complicated, requiring both technical precision and emotional depth. I've had masters of music attempt it, professionals who've trained for decades, and none have captured its essence." He looked directly at Madison. "If your daughter can learn to play this piece, truly play it, with the soul it deserves, I will do something that will secure both your futures forever." "That's very generous, but Madison doesn't even know how to play piano," Sarah said. "Doesn't matter," Madison piped up. "I already know how. I just never had keys to press." Both adults stared at the 6-year-old, who had returned to her coloring book, as if she hadn't just claimed to possess knowledge she'd never been taught. "That's impossible, sweetheart," Sarah said gently. Madison looked up with those wise eyes that always seemed to hold secrets. "Want me to show you?" Before Sarah could respond, Madison walked over to their small coffee table and began tapping her fingers on its surface. The rhythm was complex, intricate, and hauntingly beautiful. Sarah recognized it immediately. It was the same melody Vincent played every evening, but Madison's version was different somehow, more alive. Vincent gasped audibly. That's exactly how it should sound." "What is this piece?" Sarah asked, feeling increasingly surreal about the entire situation. Vincent's expression grew distant, pained. "It's called Luna's Lullaby. I wrote it 30 years ago for—" He stopped, unable to continue. Madison stopped her table tapping and looked up at Vincent with those penetrating 6-year-old eyes. "You wrote it for a little girl who went to the stars too early." The silence that followed was deafening. Vincent's face went completely white, and Sarah felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. How could Madison possibly know something so personal about a stranger? "Who told you that?" Vincent whispered. Madison shrugged, returning to her coloring. The music told me. Music doesn't lie. Vincent turned to Sarah with an intensity that made her step backward. "Mrs. Chen, I need your daughter to learn this piece. If she can play it, truly play it with the understanding she's already shown, I will marry you." "Excuse me?" Sarah stared at him in shock. "I know how it sounds, but hear me out. I'm worth over $50 million. I own properties in 12 countries. I have no heirs, no family left." His voice became urgent, desperate. "Your daughter has a gift that could honor the memory of someone I failed to protect. If she can play Luna's lullaby the way it deserves to be played, I will marry you immediately. You'll never struggle financially again. Madison will have every advantage, every opportunity." Sarah's mind reeled. "Mr. Ashford, that's crazy, impossible. Yes, I know, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and Mrs. Chen." He looked around their modest apartment, taking in the carefully mended furniture and Madison's outgrown clothes. "You're desperate, too." The truth of his words hit harder than Sarah wanted to admit. She was desperate. Every day was a battle to keep their heads above water, to provide for Madison while watching other children have opportunities that remained forever out of their reach. How long would Madison have to learn this piece? Sarah heard herself asking, surprising herself. "1 month," Vincent replied immediately. "I have a piano in my penthouse. The finest teacher's money can buy, everything she needs." Madison looked up from her coloring book. "I don't need teachers. I need to hear the whole song first, then my fingers will know what to do." Vincent knelt beside Madison again, his expression a mixture of hope and disbelief. "And if you can play it perfectly, you understand what this would mean for your mother?" Madison nodded seriously. "It would mean we don't have to worry about money anymore, and you don't have to be sad alone in that big apartment." The mature wisdom in those words from such a small child sent chills through both adults. "This is insane," Sarah muttered, running her hands through her hair. "Sanity is a luxury neither of us can afford right now," Vincent replied quietly. As if sealing some unspoken agreement, the upstairs piano began to play again, the haunting melody of Luna's lullaby drifting through their ceiling. Madison immediately stood and began moving her fingers in perfect synchronization with the music. Her eyes closed in concentration. Sarah watched her daughter in amazement and terror. Whatever was happening here was beyond her understanding, but one thing was certain. Madison's gift was real, powerful, and possibly their only chance at a different life. The question was, what secrets would this mysterious piece of music reveal, and was Sarah prepared for the consequences of letting her 6-year-old daughter unlock them? Vincent's penthouse was a world apart from anything Sarah and Madison had ever experienced. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the space itself was larger than some houses, decorated with artwork that Sarah suspected cost more than she'd earn in several lifetimes. But dominating the main living area was a magnificent black Steinway grand piano that seemed to absorb all the light in the room. Madison had been drawn to it immediately, her small hands hovering over the keys with reverent anticipation. "Go ahead," Vincent said softly. "She won't bite." The first note Madison pressed rang through the penthouse like a bell, pure and clear. She experimented with a few more keys, her expression one of wonder and recognition, as if she were greeting an old friend. "It sounds like the music in my dreams," Madison whispered. Vincent exchanged a meaningful glance with Sarah. "What kind of dreams, little one?" Madison didn't answer immediately. Instead, she began to play a simple melody. Nothing complex, but the emotion behind it was haunting. The notes seemed to carry weight beyond their sound, filling the vast space with something indefinable yet profound. "Dreams about a girl with yellow hair who liked butterflies," Madison said as she played. "She's always trying to tell me something important, but I wake up before I understand." Vincent's hands gripped the back of a nearby chair so tightly his knuckles went white. Sarah noticed his reaction and felt a growing unease about what they'd gotten themselves into. "Mr. Ashford," Sarah began carefully, "perhaps you could tell us more about this Luna's lullaby. Why is it so important to you?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment, watching Madison explore the piano with natural fluidity. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Luna was my daughter," he said simply. "She died 30 years ago when she was 7 years old." Sarah's heart clenched. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea you had a child." "Leukemia," Vincent continued, his eyes distant. "She fought for 2 years, but in the end—" He trailed off, unable to finish. Madison stopped playing and looked up at Vincent with those uncannily perceptive eyes. "She wasn't scared," Madison said matter-of-factly. "The girl with yellow hair. She tells me in the dreams that the music helped her not be scared." The silence that followed was so complete that Sarah could hear her own heartbeat. Vincent looked as if he'd seen a ghost, which Sarah supposed perhaps he had. "Luna had blonde hair," Vincent whispered, "and she collected butterfly pins, dozens of them." Madison nodded, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "She wants you to know she's not lost. She says the music is like a bridge, and if I play it right, you'll understand." Vincent sank into a chair, his composed exterior finally cracking. "How is this possible?" Sarah moved protectively closer to Madison, her maternal instincts on high alert. "Maybe we should go. This is getting too intense for a 6-year-old. "No, Mommy," Madison said firmly. "This is important. The sad man needs to remember how to smile, and Luna needs him to know she's okay." "Madison, sweetheart, you can't possibly know about—" "The lullaby isn't just a song," Madison interrupted, her small hands finding the keys again. "It's a promise. He promised Luna he'd write her the most beautiful music in the world, and he did, but he never finished the last part because he was too sad." Vincent's breath caught. The last movement, I could never bring myself to complete it." Madison began playing a melody that neither Sarah nor Vincent had heard before, but it felt familiar somehow, like a half-remembered dream. The notes were complex yet perfectly suited to small hands, and the emotion they conveyed was one of gentle reassurance and infinite love. "This is how it ends," Madison said as she played. "This is the part that says goodbye isn't forever, it's just different." Tears were streaming down Vincent's face now, and Sarah felt her own eyes welling up despite not fully understanding what was happening. The music Madison was creating seemed to heal something in the air around them, transforming Vincent's opulent but cold penthouse into something warm and alive. "She's composing," Vincent said in wonder. "A 6-year-old is composing the ending to a piece that trained musicians couldn't even properly interpret." "I'm not making it up," Madison said, continuing to play. "Luna is showing me. She says this is how the story is supposed to end, not with sadness, but with gratitude for the time you had together." Vincent rose from his chair and walked slowly to the piano, standing behind Madison as she played. For the first time since they'd met him, he looked peaceful. "If you can learn the complete piece, both the original composition and this new ending, within the month, I will honor my promise," Vincent said. "But Sarah, you need to understand what you'd be agreeing to." Sarah looked between Vincent and her daughter, who was still playing with impossible skill and maturity. "What do you mean?" "This wouldn't be a marriage of convenience or a business arrangement. I would be your husband in every legal sense. You and Madison would become my family. I would protect you, provide for you, and yes, I would love you both as genuinely as I'm capable of." Vincent's voice was steady now, resolved. "But you need to know that my heart has been locked away for 30 years. I can't promise you passion or romance. What I can promise is devotion, security, and a father figure who would cherish Madison's gift." Sarah studied Vincent's face, searching for deception or manipulation, but finding only raw honesty. And if Madison can't master the piece, then I'll still ensure you're both financially secure. Madison's gift deserves nurturing regardless of the outcome of our arrangement." Vincent paused. "But I believe she can do it. I believe she was meant to do it." Madison stopped playing and turned to face the adults. "I can do it, but not because I have to, because Luna asked me to, and because the music wants to be finished." The certainty in her voice was unsettling and convincing simultaneously. "There's something else," Vincent continued, his expression growing more serious. "Learning this piece, connecting with it the way Madison already has, it may bring up things, memories, emotions, experiences that go beyond normal musical education." "What kind of experiences?" Sarah asked, though part of her wasn't sure she wanted to know. "The kind that suggests music is more than just sound and silence," Vincent replied cryptically. "The kind that suggests some connections transcend the physical world." Madison slid off the piano bench and walked over to Sarah, taking her hand. "It's okay, Mommy. The scary feeling you have is just because this is bigger than what we're used to, but bigger doesn't mean bad." Sarah looked down at her daughter, this wise, impossible child who seemed to understand things that should have been far beyond her comprehension, and felt the weight of a decision that would change everything. "If we do this," Sarah said slowly, "I need your word that Madison's well-being comes first, above the music, above the arrangement between us, above everything." "You have it," Vincent replied immediately. Madison tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "And I need you to trust me, Mommy. I know this seems weird, but sometimes weird things are just things we don't understand yet." Sarah knelt down to meet Madison's eyes, those ancient, knowing eyes in her 6-year-old face. "Are you sure about this, baby? Really, truly sure?" Madison nodded solemnly. "Luna says this is how our story gets better. And her stories always have happy endings, even when they seem sad at first." Looking around Vincent's penthouse, then back at her daughter's determined face, Sarah made a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff and growing wings at the same time. "Okay," she whispered. "We'll do it." Vincent exhaled as if he'd been holding his breath for 30 years. "Thank you, both of you." Madison immediately returned to the piano, her small fingers finding the keys with renewed purpose. As she began to play Luna's lullaby from the beginning, the afternoon sun streamed through the penthouse windows, casting everything in golden light. For the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, their story really could have a happy ending. But as Madison's music filled the space around them, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover just how much magic and how much mystery a simple lullaby could contain. The real challenge wasn't just learning the music, it was preparing for whatever truths the music would reveal. 2 weeks into their arrangement, Sarah had moved into the guest wing of Vincent's penthouse with Madison, and their lives had transformed in ways she was still struggling to process. Madison spent hours each day at the Steinway, her small fingers growing stronger and more confident with each passing session. But it wasn't just technical skill she was developing. It was something deeper, more mystical. Vincent had hired Dr. Elizabeth Harper, a renowned child psychology professor from Columbia, to observe Madison's progress and ensure her emotional well-being throughout the intensive musical immersion. Dr. Harper had initially been skeptical of the arrangement, but after just one session with Madison, her academic detachment had given way to fascination. "Sarah, I need to speak with you privately," Dr. Harper said one afternoon, pulling Sarah aside while Madison practiced. They stepped onto the penthouse's wraparound terrace, the city sprawling below them in the late afternoon light. "What is it?" Sarah asked, though Dr. Harper's expression already told her this wasn't going to be a routine progress report. "In 25 years of working with gifted children, I've never encountered anything like Madison, Dr. Harper began carefully. Her musical intuition is extraordinary, yes, but that's not what concerns me. Concerns you how? Doctor, Harper glanced back toward the penthouse, where they could hear Madison playing. She's been telling me about conversations she has with someone named Luna. Detailed conversations about music theory, about emotional expression, about things no 6-year-old should understand. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Children have imaginary friends. That's normal. This isn't an imaginary friend, Sarah. The knowledge Madison is demonstrating, the insights she's sharing, they're beyond her educational experience, beyond her developmental stage, beyond anything that traditional psychology can explain. What are you saying? Dr. Harper chose her words carefully. I'm saying that either Madison is the most extraordinarily gifted child prodigy in documented history, or something genuinely inexplicable is happening here. Before Sarah could respond, Vincent appeared on the terrace, his expression troubled. We have a problem, he said without preamble. What kind of problem? Sarah asked. Vincent ran his hands through his silver hair. A gesture Sarah had learned meant he was deeply troubled about something. I've been researching Madison's background, trying to understand her unusual abilities. You've been investigating my daughter without telling me. Sarah's voice rose in anger. Sarah, please, let me explain. When someone demonstrates the kind of musical intuition Madison has shown, there are usually indicators in their family history. Musical parents, early exposure to instruments, something that explains the foundation. Vincent's expression grew more serious. I've found something unexpected. Dr. Harper leaned forward. What did you find? Vincent handed Sarah a manila folder. Madison's birth certificate lists her father as David Chen, deceased. But when I traced his background, I discovered something interesting about his family history. Sarah opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were documents she'd never seen before, genealogical records, old photographs, newspaper clippings. What am I looking at? She asked. Vincent pointed to a black-and-white photograph from 1962. David's grandmother was Margaret Chen, née Margaret Ashford. Sarah stared at the photo, then at Vincent. Ashford, as in my family name, yes. Margaret was my grandfather's younger sister. She married a man named Chen and moved to California in the 1960s. Vincent's voice was quiet but intense. Sarah, Madison isn't just gifted. She's my great-great-niece. We're family. The folder slipped from Sarah's hands, scattering papers across the terrace. Doctor. Harper helped gather them while Sarah stood frozen in shock. That's impossible, Sarah whispered. The documents are legitimate. I've had them verified by 3 independent sources. Vincent's expression was a mixture of wonder and something that looked like relief. It explains so much, her natural musical ability, her intuitive understanding of my compositions, her connection to Luna, Sarah finished, the pieces clicking together in her mind. Exactly. Musical talent often runs in families, but this goes beyond talent. This is a bloodline connection that spans generations. Dr. Harper looked up from the scattered papers. This changes things significantly. If Madison and Vincent are related, her unusual insights about his personal history could be explained by genetic memory, inherited musical instincts, even subconscious recognition of family compositional patterns. Sarah sank into one of the terrace chairs, her mind reeling. You're telling me that this entire situation, Madison's gift, her connection to your music, even us meeting, was all predetermined by family genetics? Not predetermined, Vincent said gently, sitting across from her, but perhaps not as coincidental as it seemed. From inside the penthouse, Madison's music stopped abruptly. A moment later, she appeared on the terrace, her expression more serious than any 6-year-old's should be. You found out about the family connection, she said matter-of-factly. All three adults stared at her in stunned silence. "How did you—" Vincent began. Madison shrugged, as she did whenever adults acted surprised by her insights. "Luna told me we were family the first time I dreamed about her. She said that's why I could hear the music, the way she heard it." "Why didn't you tell us?" Sarah asked. "Because you weren't ready to understand yet. Sometimes grown-ups need to figure things out for themselves before they can believe them." Dr. Harper pulled out her notebook. "Madison, when Luna talks to you, can you tell us more about what she says?" Madison considered this carefully, as she did all questions about her unusual experiences. "She says music is like a river that runs through families. Each person adds their own part to the song, but the melody stays the same underneath." "And what's the melody in our family?" Vincent asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Love that doesn't end, even when people do." Madison walked over to Vincent and placed her small hand on his arm. "She says you've been carrying her part of the song all by yourself, but you don't have to anymore." Vincent's eyes filled with tears. "And you can help me carry it?" Madison nodded solemnly. "That's what family does. We share the heavy parts so nobody has to hold them alone." Sarah watched this exchange between her daughter and Vincent, feeling as if she were witnessing something sacred. The family connection explained so much, but it also raised new questions about destiny, purpose, and the mysterious ways that life could weave broken pieces back together. "There's more," Vincent said, turning back to Sarah. "The marriage proposal still stands, but now you need to understand what it really means. This wouldn't just be a business arrangement or even a romantic one. It would be reuniting a family that's been separated for decades." "And if Madison can't complete the lullaby?" Sarah asked. Vincent's expression softened. "She already has, Sarah. The moment she recognized the family melody, the moment she understood her connection to Luna, she completed the most important part. The technical mastery is just the final step." Madison returned to the piano, and within moments, the most beautiful music Sarah had ever heard was flowing through the penthouse. It was Luna's lullaby, but complete now, whole in a way that spoke of love transcending loss, of family bonds that couldn't be broken by death or time or distance. As the last notes faded, Madison turned to the adults watching her. "The music is ready," she announced. "Are you?" Vincent walked to the piano and sat beside Madison on the bench. For the first time since Sarah had known him, he looked truly at peace. "I think we all are," he said softly. But as Sarah watched her daughter and Vincent share the piano bench, their hands moving together across the keys in perfect harmony, she couldn't help but wonder what other family secrets were waiting to be discovered in the music they were creating together. The lullaby was complete, but something told Sarah that their story was just beginning. The wedding was set for exactly 1 month from their first meeting, as Vincent had promised. But as the day approached, Sarah found herself grappling with emotions she hadn't expected. What had begun as a desperate arrangement had evolved into something far more complex, especially after discovering the family connection that bound them all together. Madison's mastery of Luna's lullaby had become transcendent. She could play the complete piece flawlessly, including the hauntingly beautiful ending she had somehow composed. But more than technical perfection, her playing carried an emotional depth that moved everyone who heard it to tears. Vincent had arranged for several renowned musicians to witness Madison's performance, and their reactions ranged from amazement to bewilderment. "It's impossible, Dr. Catherine Morrison, a professor of music theory from Juilliard, had whispered after hearing Madison play. "She's interpreting nuances in that composition that I've studied for years and never fully grasped." But success brought new challenges. Word of Madison's extraordinary abilities had somehow leaked beyond Vincent's carefully controlled circle. 3 days before the wedding, Sarah answered a knock at the penthouse door to find a well-dressed woman with calculating eyes and a predatory smile. "Mrs. Chen? My name is Patricia Blackwood from Blackwood Talent Management. I represent some of the most gifted young musicians in the world. Sarah didn't invite her in. I'm sorry, but we're not interested in... I've heard recordings of your daughter's performance. That level of talent could make her a millionaire before she turns 10. Patricia's voice carried the kind of aggressive confidence that made Sarah's skin crawl. "I'm prepared to offer you a contract that would set your family up for life." "Madison is 6 years old," Sarah replied firmly. "She's not a commodity." Patricia's smile turned cold. "Mrs. Chen, I've done my research. You're living in Vincent Ashford's penthouse, planning to marry a man you've known for less than a month. Don't pretend you're not interested in capitalizing on your daughter's abilities." Before Sarah could respond, Vincent appeared behind her, his presence immediately shifting the dynamic. "Ms. Blackwood," he said, his voice carrying unmistakable authority. "I believe you were just leaving." Patricia's expression hardened. "Mr. Ashford, you can't keep that child's talent hidden forever. The world deserves to hear what she can do. The world will hear what Madison chooses to share when she chooses to share it," Vincent replied. "Now I suggest you leave before I have security escort you out." After Patricia left, Sarah found herself shaking. How many more people like her are going to come looking for Madison? Vincent pulled Sarah into his arms, a gesture that had become natural over the past weeks, despite their unconventional arrangement. "As many as it takes. But I promise you, Sarah, no one will exploit Madison's gift, not ever." That evening, as Madison practiced her lullaby, Sarah noticed something different in her daughter's demeanor. Madison seemed distracted, occasionally stopping mid-phrase to listen to something only she could hear. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Sarah asked. Madison's expression was troubled. "Luna says there's something important I need to tell you and Vincent before the wedding. Something about why she really wanted me to learn her song." Vincent, who had been listening from across the room, walked over to the piano. "What does she want you to tell us?" Madison's small hands rested on the keys, but she didn't play. "She says the lullaby isn't just a song, it's a key." "A key to what?" Sarah asked. "To finding something that was lost a long time ago." Madison looked up at Vincent with those impossibly wise eyes. "She says you've been looking for it your whole life, but you didn't know what you were looking for." Vincent knelt beside the piano bench. "Madison, can you be more specific? What was lost?" Madison closed her eyes, as if listening to whispered instructions. "Luna says there's a box hidden in the old house where you used to live with her. Inside the box is proof of something that will change everything." "What kind of proof?" Vincent's voice was barely a whisper. "Proof that Luna didn't die from being sick," Madison said quietly. "She died because someone made her sick on purpose." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room, and Vincent looked as though he'd been physically struck. "That's impossible," Vincent said, his voice shaking. "Luna had leukemia. I was there through every treatment, every doctor's appointment, Luna says the medicine that was supposed to help her was changed by someone who wanted to hurt you," Madison continued, her voice steady despite the gravity of what she was saying. "She says the proof is in letters hidden with her favorite butterfly pin." Vincent stood abruptly, pacing to the windows overlooking the city. "This is insane. Who would want to hurt a 7-year-old child?" Madison opened her eyes and looked directly at Vincent. "Someone who wanted to hurt you, but knew the only way to really break you was to take away what you loved most." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Madison, sweetheart, how could Luna possibly know all this?" "Because she's been watching," Madison said simply. She says when people die with important secrets, sometimes they can't rest until the truth comes out. Vincent turned back to them, his face pale but determined. Where is this box supposed to be? In the basement of the house on Elm Street, behind the furnace, inside the wall, where you and Luna used to hide her art projects. Vincent staggered slightly. How could you possibly know about... He stopped, staring at Madison in amazement. Luna and I did hide her drawings there. It was our secret place. Duh, she remembers everything, Madison said softly, and she wants you to know the truth before you start your new family with us. Sarah reached for Vincent's hand, finding it ice-cold and trembling. Vincent, even if this is true, it was 30 years ago. Does it really matter now? Vincent's expression hardened. If someone murdered my daughter, yes, it matters. But the house on Elm Street, do you still own it? Sarah asked. I've never been able to bring myself to sell it. It's been empty for 3 decades. Vincent's voice grew stronger, more resolved. If there's even a chance that that Luna is right, I have to know. Madison slid off the piano bench and walked over to Vincent, taking his much larger hand in her small one. Luna says she's not telling you this to make you sad again. She's telling you because keeping secrets makes the music incomplete. What do you mean? Vincent asked. The lullaby will only be truly finished when there are no more secrets between us, Madison explained. Family songs need truth to sound right. Vincent looked between Madison and Sarah, his expression a mixture of determination and fear. Will you come with me? To the house? Sarah's maternal instinct screamed against taking Madison to investigate what might be evidence of a 30-year-old murder. But looking at her daughter's serene expression, she realized this wasn't really a choice. Madison was already committed to seeing this through. When? Sarah asked. Tomorrow, Vincent said, before the wedding. Before we officially become a family. If there are secrets that need to be revealed, better to face them now. Madison returned to the piano and began playing Luna's lullaby. But this time the melody carried a different weight. It sounded less like a memorial and more like a promise that truth, no matter how painful, was the only foundation strong enough to build a family upon. As the last notes faded, Madison turned to the adults. Luna says thank you for believing her. She says it's been very lonely keeping this secret for so long. Sarah pulled Madison into her arms, holding her daughter close while grappling with the surreal reality of their situation. Tomorrow, they would either put to rest the mysterious claims of a 6-year-old with an impossible gift, or they would uncover a truth that could shatter everything Vincent thought he knew about his daughter's death. Either way, there would be no going back. Vincent stood at the windows, staring out at the city lights, and Sarah could see his reflection in the glass, a man preparing to face the possibility that his grief had been built on a lie, and that somewhere out there his daughter's killer might still be alive. The wedding was in 2 days, but first they had a ghost to lay to rest. The house on Elm Street stood like a monument to abandoned grief, its Victorian architecture still elegant despite 30 years of neglect. Vincent's hands shook as he unlocked the front door, and Sarah noticed he had to pause before turning the handle, as if crossing the threshold required summoning courage from somewhere deep within. Madison showed no hesitation. The moment the door opened, she walked inside as if she'd been there countless times before, navigating through dust-covered furniture with confident familiarity. The basement door is through the kitchen, Madison said, leading the way through rooms that Vincent hadn't seen in decades. Sarah followed, taking in the preserved remnants of Vincent's life with Luna. Children's drawings still hung on the refrigerator, faded but recognizable. A small pink jacket hung on a hook by the back door. Toys sat exactly where they'd been left, as if Luna had just stepped out to play and would return any moment. I couldn't bear to change anything, Vincent said quietly, noticing Sarah's observation. I kept thinking, hoping. Madison had already found the basement door and was waiting patiently for the adults to catch up. Luna says it's okay that you kept everything the same. She likes that her home still feels like her home. The basement was darker and mustier than the rest of the house, filled with the accumulated dampness of 3 decades. Vincent's flashlight beam revealed a space that had once been Luna's playroom. A child-sized table and chairs, shelves of books, and in the corner an easel with a half-finished painting still clipped to it. She was working on a butterfly garden, Vincent whispered, staring at the painting. She said when she got better, we were going to plant real flowers to attract butterflies to our backyard. Madison walked directly to the old furnace, studying the wall behind it with intense concentration. Here, she said, pointing to what appeared to be a solid brick wall. Luna says you have to remove 3 bricks, starting with the one shaped like a heart. Vincent aimed his flashlight at the wall, and after a moment of searching, he found it. A brick that was indeed heart-shaped, likely a quirk of the old masonry. With some effort, he managed to work it loose, revealing a small cavity behind it. Inside was a metal box, no larger than a shoebox, wrapped in what had once been a pink cloth, but was now faded to grey. Vincent's hands trembled as he lifted the box from its hiding place. I had no idea this was here. Madison nodded solemnly. Luna says you weren't supposed to find it then. You would have tried to get revenge, and that would have made you become a sad, angry person forever. She wanted you to find it now, when you have a new family to help you stay good. Sarah felt a chill at the mature wisdom in those words from her 6-year-old daughter. Vincent set the box on Luna's old table and slowly opened it. Inside were items that took his breath away. Luna's favorite butterfly pin, several folded letters, a small recording device, and a photograph of Luna with a woman Sarah didn't recognize. Vincent picked up the first letter with shaking hands. As he read, his face grew increasingly pale. "What does it say?" Sarah asked gently. Vincent's voice was barely a whisper as he read aloud, "My dearest Luna, the medicine Dr. Helena gave you isn't helping because it's not real medicine. She's been giving you something that makes you sicker because she wants to hurt your daddy. I tried to tell the other nurses, but no one believes me because Dr. Helena is very important. I'm writing this down so someday, when you're older, you'll know the truth about what happened to you." The letter was signed Nurse Mary Patterson and dated just 2 weeks before Luna's death. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "Vincent, this is evidence of murder," Vincent finished, his voice hollow. Madison climbed onto one of the small chairs and reached for the recording device. "Luna says there's more on here. She says the nice nurse lady recorded Dr. Helena talking about her bad plan." With trembling fingers, Vincent pressed play. The recording was scratchy and difficult to hear, but the voices were clear enough. "The Ashford child won't last much longer with the modified treatments," a woman's voice said coldly. "Dr. Helena, I don't understand why we're—" Another voice began. "Vincent Ashford destroyed my brother's life when he exposed his financial crimes. James died in prison because of Ashford's testimony. Now Vincent will know what it feels like to lose someone he loves. But she's just a child. She's leverage, and when she's gone, Vincent Ashford will spend the rest of his life in agony, knowing he couldn't save his precious daughter." The recording continued for several more minutes, detailing how Dr. Helena Mitchell had systematically replaced Luna's chemotherapy with a compound that accelerated her illness rather than treating it. Vincent sank into one of the tiny chairs, his large frame looking absurd in the child-sized furniture, but his grief making him seem small and broken. 30 years, he whispered. For 30 years, I thought I failed her. I thought I didn't get her the right treatment fast enough, didn't find the right doctors, You didn't fail her, Madison said firmly, placing her small hand on Vincent's shoulder. Luna says you were the best daddy in the whole world, and the bad lady only hurt her because she knew how much you loved each other. Sarah picked up the photograph from the box. It showed Luna with a middle-aged woman in a nurse's uniform, presumably Mary Patterson, who had tried to expose the truth. We need to take this to the police, Sarah said. Vincent looked up, his expression a mixture of grief and growing rage. Dr. Helena Mitchell. I remember her now. She was the attending physician who oversaw Luna's case. She's probably still practicing medicine somewhere, still trusted with other people's children. Madison moved to the old easel and picked up a paintbrush that lay beside Luna's unfinished painting. To Sarah's amazement, Madison began adding details to the butterfly garden, her small hands moving with the same confident precision she showed at the piano. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" Sarah asked. "Finishing what Luna started," Madison replied, concentrating on her work. "She says now that the truth is out, her stories can have happy endings." As Madison painted, she spoke in that eerily mature way she had when channeling Luna's messages. The bad lady thought she could make Daddy forget how to love, but instead she just made him save his love up for when the right family came along. That's us, Mommy. We're the family his saved-up love was waiting for. Vincent stood and walked over to watch Madison paint. The butterfly garden was coming to life under her small hands, more beautiful and detailed than Luna's original sketch. "She's adding butterflies that weren't in the original," Vincent observed, his voice filled with wonder. "Luna says these are the butterflies she's been watching grow in the place where she is now," Madison explained. "She wants you to know that even though the bad lady cut her time short, it didn't stop her from watching beautiful things grow." As Madison put the finishing touches on the painting, Vincent made a decision that Sarah could see forming in his expression. "We're getting married tomorrow as planned," he said firmly, "and then we're going to make sure Dr. Helena Mitchell faces justice for what she did." "Are you sure you want to go through with the wedding after all this?" Sarah asked. "I would understand if you needed time to process." "No," Vincent interrupted. "Luna guided us together for a reason. This family was always meant to happen, Sarah. The only difference is now I understand why she needed it to happen." Madison set down the paintbrush and turned to face them, her expression serene. "Luna says the lullaby is truly finished now. All the sad notes have been explained, and all the happy notes are ready to begin." Vincent knelt down and pulled Madison into a hug, then reached out to include Sarah. "Tomorrow we become a family, officially. But today we became something more. We became the ending Luna always wanted her story to have." And as they prepared to leave the house on Elm Street, taking the evidence box with them, Sarah noticed that Madison had left something on the easel, a small note written in her careful 6-year-old handwriting. "Thank you for trusting me to tell your secret, Luna. Love, your cousin Madison." For the first time since entering the house, Vincent smiled. "She's going to rest peacefully now, isn't she?" Madison nodded confidently. "She says goodbye isn't scary anymore when you know love keeps going even after people do." As they locked the house behind them, Sarah realized that tomorrow's wedding wouldn't just be the beginning of their new life together. It would be the final note in a lullaby that had taken 30 years to complete. The wedding took place in the penthouse as planned, but it was unlike any ceremony Sarah could have imagined. What should have been a simple legal arrangement had transformed into something sacred, witnessed by Dr. Harper, Vincent's attorney, and a small group of family friends who had known Luna years before. Madison wore a white dress with butterfly embroidery, a gift from Vincent that made her look like a small angel, and served as both flower girl and maid of honor. But it was her role as the musician that made the ceremony truly extraordinary. As Sarah walked down the improvised aisle between chairs arranged in Vincent's living room, Madison played Luna's lullaby on the Steinway. The music filled the space with such beauty and emotion that several guests wept openly. But it wasn't sadness they were feeling, it was the profound joy of witnessing a broken melody finally made whole. "Today," Vincent said in his vows, his voice steady and sure, "I'm not just marrying Sarah, I'm embracing the family that Luna always knew I needed. Sarah, you've brought light back into my life, but more than that, you've brought Madison, whose gift has allowed me to hear my daughter's voice one final time." Sarah's own vows were simple but heartfelt. "Vincent, when we first met, I thought you were offering us security. I didn't realize you were offering us belonging. Madison and I accept your love, your protection, and your promise to be the father she's always deserved." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Madison began playing the final movement of the lullaby. The ending she had composed that spoke of love transcending loss, of family bonds that couldn't be broken by death or time. But the most remarkable moment came when Madison finished playing and turned to the gathering with tears of joy streaming down her face. "Luna says she can go now," Madison announced. "She says thank you for helping her daddy remember how to smile." As if on cue, a butterfly, impossible in the middle of winter, appeared at the penthouse windows. It stayed just long enough for everyone to notice, then disappeared into the grey December sky. Dr. Harper, who had documented every aspect of Madison's unusual experiences, wiped tears from her eyes. "In all my years of studying the human mind, I've never witnessed anything like what this family has shared." The celebration was small but joyful, filled with music and laughter and the kind of warmth that comes from people who have been through something profound together. But even as they celebrated, Vincent was already planning their next steps. 3 days after the wedding, Dr. Helena Mitchell was arrested at her current practice in Boston. The evidence from Luna's hidden box, combined with additional investigation prompted by the 30-year-old case, revealed a pattern of medical manipulation spanning her entire career. 7 other families came forward with similar stories of children who had died under mysterious circumstances while in Dr. Mitchell's care. "She won't hurt any more children," Vincent told Sarah as they watched the news coverage together. "Luna's secret has saved other families from going through what we did." Madison, now legally Vincent's daughter, through adoption papers he'd expedited, had returned to a more normal routine. She still played piano daily, but her compositions had evolved beyond Luna's lullaby into original pieces that spoke of hope, family, and new beginnings. The Ashford Foundation for Musical Education, established with Vincent's wealth and Madison's inspiration, provided instruments and lessons for underprivileged children throughout the city. Madison insisted that every child who received a piano through the foundation also receive a butterfly pin, so they remember that beautiful things can grow even when life is hard. 6 months after their wedding, Sarah found Vincent and Madison in the music room, working together on a new composition. Madison's small hands moved confidently across the keys, while Vincent provided harmony on a second piano they'd added to the space. "What are you two creating now?" Sarah asked, settling into her favorite chair to listen. "It's called The Family Song," Madison explained, not stopping her playing. "It's about how sometimes the best families are the ones that find each other when they need each other most." Vincent smiled at Sarah, the kind of genuine, peaceful smile she'd never seen on his face in those first desperate weeks. "It's about second chances and the ways love multiplies when you share it instead of hoarding it." As Sarah listened to their music, she marveled at the journey that had brought them together. What had started as a desperate arrangement to solve financial problems had become a true love story, not just between her and Vincent, but between all 3 of them as a family. Madison had grown into her gift, learning to balance her extraordinary musical abilities with the normal experiences of childhood. She attended a progressive school that nurtured her talents while ensuring she had friends her own age and opportunities to just be a kid. Her conversations with Luna had faded as the lullaby's purpose was fulfilled, but Madison's special sensitivity to music and emotions remained. "Do you think Luna would be happy with how everything turned out?" Sarah asked one evening as they tucked Madison into bed. Madison considered this with the same thoughtful intensity she brought to everything. "I think she's really proud that her music helped build our family, and she's excited that other kids will get to make music too, because of what we learned from her story." "Do you miss talking to her?" Vincent asked gently. Madison shook her head. "I don't miss her because she's not really gone. Every time we play her lullaby, every time we help another family through the foundation, every time we show love to each other, that's Luna's voice. It just sounds different now." A year after their wedding, the penthouse had been transformed from a monument to grief into a home filled with life and music and laughter. Madison's artwork covered the refrigerator, her toys were scattered in every room, and the sound of practicing piano was a constant, joyful presence. Sarah had returned to school to study music therapy, inspired by Madison's gift and wanting to help other families discover healing through music. Vincent had slowly emerged from his self-imposed isolation, reconnecting with old friends and making new ones through their foundation work. But it was during Madison's 7th birthday party that the most wonderful surprise occurred. As Madison played a special birthday composition she'd written for herself, surrounded by new friends from school and their extended family of foundation supporters, she stopped mid-song and looked directly at Vincent. "She has one more message," Madison said, her expression radiant with joy. "Luna?" Vincent asked softly. Madison nodded and returned to the piano, playing a melody none of them had heard before. It was simple, playful, and filled with the pure happiness of a child's laughter. When she finished, Madison turned back to them with tears of joy in her eyes. She says thank you for giving her the most beautiful ending to her story. And she says the next song you write should be about all the beautiful beginnings that are still to come. Vincent pulled both Sarah and Madison into his arms, and for the first time in 31 years he felt complete peace. The lullaby had served its purpose, the family was whole, and the music they would create together would honor both the past and the future. As the birthday party continued around them, filled with the laughter of children and the warmth of true family, Sarah realized that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the most impossible circumstances. A wealthy stranger's desperate proposal, a 6-year-old's supernatural gift, and a 30-year-old mystery had woven together to create something beautiful and lasting. Madison returned to her birthday song, but this time Vincent and Sarah joined in, their voices harmonizing with her piano in a melody that spoke of love found, family formed, and promises kept. It was the sound of a lullaby transformed into a celebration, of grief transformed into gratitude, and of 3 separate lives transformed into one unbreakable song. The music filled the penthouse and spilled out into the city beyond, carrying with it the message that Luna had always wanted her father to understand. Love never truly ends, it just finds new ways to grow.